Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Jonathan back again with the weekly scuffle, and I'm here to talk about the huge announcement by the UFC in the next three main events for the UFC. Starting off with UFC 297, Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. Honestly, this is a great matchup. Du Plessis is coming off a KO victory against Rob Whittaker. You got Strickland coming off an amazing performance against Israel Adesanya in a match that nobody thought he would win if we're being realistic, but he came through, and now he's probably the most controversial UFC champion of all time. But with that being said, Duplessis ain't no joke. I think this is going to be a very interesting fight for both guys. I'm very interested to see who comes out on top of this because you know Adesanya is still lurking in this division, whether you want to admit it or not. He's still around. His come up will happen sooner or later. I think he will get to the top. So seeing who will be at the top is going to be very interesting because I think either way, Adesanya will fight both these guys at some point or another. There's too much history with both guys now to not make those fights. But in Toronto, UFC 297, this is a great matchup. And secondly, we go up to Volkanovski against Topuria, who honestly I think these are some pretty solid matchups. Volkanovski coming off a loss to Islam Makhachev, who I think is the pound for pound number one fighter in the UFC. So there's no shame there. Volkanovski, we all saw him crying and, being emotional, saying he basically had to fight in order to keep living. And, a lot of fighters go through that. But with that being said, I think he is dominant at 145. I think he will continue to be dominant at 145. With that being said, I think Ilya is still a great fight for him. Undefeated. His last win coming against Emmett. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how this fight plays out. If someone at 145 could potentially challenge Volk, I actually don't think it's going to be possible for anyone to ever really beat him at 145 unless somebody comes up. But with that being said, I think it's a great matchup regardless for UFC 298. And last but not least, we have the last matchup, Sean O'Malley versus Cheeto Vera. And honestly, this is very interesting because if it was any other champion, there'd be a lot of criticism for this fight. It's kind of similar to Adesanya fighting Sean Strickland, but I think it makes sense because Sean O'Malley, he is young, he does have that superstar potential, and Cheeto Vera is still ranked in the top 10, and he beat Sean O'Malley. He is the only guy to have beaten Sean O'Malley. Granted, it was that leg kick, which basically hit a nerve, I believe, in Sean O'Malley, and he couldn't really continue the fight. With that being said, Sean O'Malley will say that it does not count per the Sean O'Malley Commission, but the fight counts regardless, and I think this fight is great for Sean O'Malley to prove that he does belong at the top. I think there still are questions, even though he won against Aljamain Sterling fair and square. I think that was a great performance by him. I think this matchup will show how much Sean has improved. And if he is on that all-time great trajectory, I think this is going to be a great matchup. And I think Sean O'Malley has the potential to be one of the big superstars in the UFC. But, you know, I think his development is going to be key to figuring that out. But with all that being said, we'll see how all this plays out. We'll see how all of this leads up to UFC 300. Maybe the Notorious will be making a comeback then. But with that being said, we'll see how all this plays out. And see you next time. Peace.